Getting ready. Yes. We're actually live. Okay. Hi, guys. And we're recording.
Cool.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Will.
Hello,
Thank you
hello.
for coming.
Glad to be
Yes.
here.
Yes. Hi, guys. Maria JD here again. And I'm joined today by our own Will Moritz. And thank you for coming back. And Will is here. Everything is fine. And today we are running the workshop. Yay!
Yeah, a little bit of confusion there.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone is fine. And we're on. So we're probably gonna give this a few minutes, like meanwhile everybody is joining. But meanwhile, Will, do you want to give a little intro of about what this presentation is like, and just like a little roundup?
Yeah, sure, man. So, what we're going to be going through today is looking at a professional pitch deck. If you're not familiar with pitch decks, these are used across all types of different industries to be able to get work. And this is really sort of a lot of what the bidding process looks like at a studio, a company level when they're trying to get new clients, get funding for a new film that they want to create, a new video game that they want to create. They'll put together something called a pitch deck. And what we're going to be looking at is how these pitch decks and the framework of how they're laid out don't only apply to companies and at a high level and have some really high rewards that are attached to them, but how this process and this framework applies to individual artists as well. So if you're a freelancer, if you're trying to get into a studio, this mentality of pitching really kind of is speaking their language, and it's going to help you to be able to sound more professional when you're trying to get your foot in the door or work with any type of company. So yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
pulling back the curtain on the process.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I personally think that it's super, super helpful because, everybody's career paths are different. And maybe you're going to be applying for like traditional jobs, but maybe you will be supplementing your job with a freelancing gig here and there. Maybe you will be looking into, I don't know, like putting together your own small team of artists at like indie studio, or maybe you're going to be building your own product, a video game. Again, like that's a
Yeah,
great example, or something. You will need to know a lot about how to present your project, how to present your art. But yeah, you will probably know a lot more about that. But just want to say that creating pitch decks is a super important skill that anyone will benefit from.
yeah.
So yeah.
And also, the mentality of the pitch decks can work
Yes.
with cover letters as well when you're reaching out to companies. And the same type of
100%.
format crosses all types of different borders within the creative space, or really trying to get any kind of idea or next step off the ground.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's you will probably go into like applications of, like how this can work for like different stages of the career. But keep this in mind always, I guess, guys, as you're watching that, like just think, how can you apply it today? How can you use it? Because any learning, it's not enough, just as we are getting closer to the finish line of the boot camp. And by the way, you know that you're a part of the boot camp, right? So I just wanted to like remind everyone once again that watching this content is not enough. Doing tasks will definitely help you out because it will force you to apply this knowledge. Once you apply something once, you internalize it, it becomes your own. So maybe as a practice exercise after this one, just try making your own pitch deck, because that's a good way to actually make something for yourself and to make this learning like yours. So yeah, anyways, a reminder, um, Yeah. Oh my God, all the memes in the chat. Will, I don't know if you see the memes, but hi, like they're. I love all the memes. So as a reminder, all of your questions should go to the post of the stream, so that we don't lose them. And by the end of the stream, we'll have a Q&A. So we'll go through all the questions. And also, before I disappear, sorry, Will, I'm hijacking this for a little while, but before I disappear, the second stream of the day is right after this one with a little break. So should be 3 p.m. Eastern time, or convert it to your own time zone. I'm sorry, I'm getting so confused. 3 p.m. Eastern. But anyways, after this one, we're not saying bye because it's a little it's a little sprint of streams. Okie dokie, guys. So yeah, Will, is that all right if I go to the backstage and leave you with a lot of hungry artists?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking and rolling.
Alrighty, guys, enjoy the stream. Throw all your questions at Will, and myself and my colleague Anna are here on the backstage looking over at you. Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to hopefully leave a little bit of time here at the end to be able to get to any of the questions that you guys have come up along the way. But thank you so much for joining today. So this is the Pitch Perfect presentation, tips and tricks for creative roles. And if you guys are coming in a little bit late, the idea today is that we're going to be looking at a real world pitch deck. We'll talk about what it did, but kind of dissecting the structure of this pitch deck and looking at how that can help you be able to write a great cover letter, be able to take on contracts of your own. And there's a lot of different cross-pollination that happens with this particular skill set. It's a great thing to be able to understand the mentality of the studios that you're applying and working with, sort of the business end of things, and also to be able to understand that you're not all that different from these big studios, even as an individual artist that's been, refining and working on your skill set so much. So this is going to help you in the professional realm quite a bit, I hope. And that's where the first meme comes from. Me alone in my room. We are an award-winning multidisciplinary design studio. Yes, you all are. So let's get this rolling and go to the next slide. So from freelance to studios, everyone is the same. Let's talk a little bit more about how that works. But first, an introduction. So my name is William Moritz, and I've been working in the creative field for about 20 years now. When did the time go by that quick? So what I do is I work in 2D, I work in 3D. I've done work for films, for web design, for UI UX, for branding, for motion graphics, and a Missy Elliott music video. It has been a very non-linear path for me through the creative world. And through that non-linear path, I've been able to really develop a creative strategy that I can apply to any type of creative output. And it's after a while of working in all these different fields, you start to see that really the creative process becomes the same in all of them. So some of the past clients include Porsche, Delta, AT&T, HBO, Red Bull, ADT, the CDC, Ford, and quite a few others. So it's been a ride. Now, here's what we'll be talking about. So we're going to be talking about pitch strategies using that real world example and how it applies to you as an individual artist, and how these strategies scale to companies across any industry. So again, this stuff that we're going to be talking today, if it feels like, oh my goodness, why are we talking about, these pitch decks? I'm an individual artist that does ZBrush. I'm going to try and wrap it all around so that you can see how this kind of thinking mentality can apply to the work that you're doing and where it is you want to go within your own creative journey. All right, so the workshop is for you if you're looking for work in a studio, if you're open now to taking on freelance opportunities, or if you want to help your studio get more work. Number 3 is an interesting one, right? So you jumping ahead a little bit, you get into the field, you're in your studio, you've been with them for say 5 years or so. You really understand your team, you understand what projects are coming up, how they get work. And this is putting it sort of on your radar to step into that. Maybe you're already a lead designer or a senior designer, to start stepping into the art director or the creative director role. And this is a lot of the stuff that you're going to be doing when it comes to building relationships with other companies to bring in more work. In this way, it's a lot like an advertising studio. They're always trying to do that. All right. So here we have finally made it to the pitch deck that we keep on talking about. And what we're going to be looking at today is a real world example from a studio called, from a marketing advertising agency called Blue Ocean. So this Blue Ocean pitch deck ended up landing this company $15 million for their idea. Their pitch process is universal and can be applied to any type of idea. So their strategy, the order that they're presenting this information is nothing out of the ordinary. This happens all the time. And so if you're working for a studio and they're trying to start a new video game, or they want to get a new short film, or they want to get commercial work, they're going to end up bidding on these massive contracts. And the way that they do that is by presenting sort of a pitch deck to whoever it is that's holding the purse strings, to be able to convince them that they're the best guys for the job, that they should use them. And for you as an individual artist, you can use this pitching strategy to show that studio who's trying to get the money, who's trying to get people to pay for the big ideas, that studio should pay you, because they're the ones holding the purse strings for you. That's going to pay you to get their idea off the ground. So you see how it all starts to become a little bit universal. All righty. So that was the first cover on this page. When you open up this pitch deck that Blue Ocean used, the first page is stating the problem. This is very universal, and this is something that you can use within your cover letters. So you're writing, a AAA gaming company, and you're all excited to be able to hopefully work for these guys. Perhaps you're seeing them as this big monolithic studio that you're not quite sure if you're good enough to be able to get in with, because they just create stuff that you've been watching for years and you really idolize them. What you can do is start your cover letters by saying, hey, as simple as, I saw that you guys have a need for a 3D artist. Or if you've been following this studio and you understand that they're going to read the job description, hey, we're about to pitch for a new job, for a new TV show, we're about to start doing a new video game, then congratulate them. State what their accomplishment is. So stating the problem has a little bit more ebb and flow to it than just, oh, I noticed that you guys really don't have good texture maps, and I think that your texture maps could be a lot better. No, say, hey, look, I saw that you guys are starting a new video game. This is their problem, and I feel like I could be someone that could help you solve and fit into your pipeline pretty well. So step number one, state the problem. In this case, Blue Ocean said marketing is broken, and they went on to give a couple examples of how, because of cookies and blocking cookies, that companies can no longer see the analytics that they used to be able to. And so there is $1 trillion sitting on the table for marketing budgets across different platforms that no one knows where they're really kind of trying to target their audience anymore. Interesting problem. So number 2 of steps that you're going to take is, what do you bring to the table? You're going to state your benefit. So the first one is you're saying, hey, you guys, I know that you need a 3D artist. Here's what I can do. So in their slide, this is the second page of Blue Ocean's pitch deck, they say that Blue Ocean is 10% of the cost while being 26 times faster than the other guys. So they give some different examples of the old way to track branding and then the Blue Ocean way, right? So they're stating what it is that they do better and what they bring to the table. It's such an interesting thing when we're working in the creative world. We often get so critical on ourselves, and you see all the people on ArtStation, and you always think like, man, if I was only as good as that guy, or I had a piece like that in my portfolio, then maybe I would be able to be at that level. And guess what? As soon as you get to that level and you've got that piece within your portfolio, you're looking at another guy and then another guy. And you always tend to feel like, maybe if I just had that one more thing. This whole pitching process is all about tooting your own horn, because if you don't toot your own horn, who's going to do it for you? So you can say things like in your cover letter. So the second thing is, I bring a great track record of quickly onboarding to new studios and their processes. This is such an important thing to be able to say, because every studio that I've ever worked in, and perhaps you felt the same way, has got a different process, a different pipeline, different places where they store their files, different types of rendering strategies, the way that they crunch or output their textures. Yes, there is a standard pipeline that you can learn in school and learn on the internet, but each studio, once you get inside of them, you find out that it's all held together by duct tape and silly string. So the way that they do things. So being able to onboard and learn a studio's process quickly is like magic to the ears of someone who's going to take a risk on hiring a new person into their club. The next point is, I've been producing high-end 3D models for 5 years with the AAA game pipelines. So this simply means, and I love this statement, right? The way that you say things, sort of word art, matters a lot within these cover letters. It doesn't say that you've worked for AAA gaming studios, but it says that you've been working within the AAA gaming pipeline. So even if you've never launched, it gets old seeing these job applications where they say, hey, how many AAA games have you launched in the past? Well, if you haven't had the opportunity to be able to do all that yet, or have a little micro job within a major studio, being able to say that you have been working within the standard AAA game pipeline is a great workaround to be able to say, hey, I know what's required, I know what the steps are, and it keeps it a little bit vague. So it's still a reassuring statement without, showing any weakness. Next up, step 3, how you solved the problem in the past. So this is circling back around to step 1. You've stated the problem. They're looking for a 3D artist. They're looking for a 3D character artist or an environment artist or a texture artist. And now it's your chance to talk about how in the past you've gone through and created a 3D character for someone else that turned out really well. This is a good chance to be able to say, hey, there's also a link to the bottom, at the bottom of this email, to that project for you to be able to view the actual results. So for the Blue Ocean guys, I said, in our customers' own words, Blue Ocean tells brands what's next right now. That is an excellent tagline. I've got some taglines that I like to use within emails, and we'll talk about those towards the end of this presentation as well. And then they go on and they give an example of traditional health branding and auditing. It's a massive industry, you guys. If you ever get the chance to be able to do any 3D models or motion graphics pieces for the healthcare industry, they pay really well. Step number 4, past clients and accomplishments. So this one feels a little bit related, right, to the previous one. You can see how each one of these steps is sort of building on the last one. The last one was how you solved the problem. So you talk about a specific situation in which you had to do a 3D model or a 3D character. This one is interesting because it turns the conversation from, yes, I made a 3D character, to, because I made this 3D character, this is the result of what we were able to accomplish. Seems silly, but it's a vitally important piece for being able to tell the story to anyone who's going to hire you or any company that wants to bring you on for work. So this is the idea that because we made this 3D character, we were able to get a main character in the game that was compelling and exciting, and we're able to generate, social media buzz over, this character's design. And that does wonders for people who are trying to get their voice out there, who are trying to get interest for their game. In the Blue Ocean example, they go through and they list, who their team members are, and also where their team comes from. Their investors, who else is investing in them. This is a great thing. I remember when I came back to Atlanta, Georgia to be a creative director for a gaming company, after about a year of working for this celebrity interactive gaming company, they got to the point where they wanted to go for some more funding, to go for some really big funding and try to sell this company to William Morris, which is a major entertainment brand, especially in the music industry. And at that point, I didn't have the accolades and I didn't have the ability to be able to talk. I call it corporate ease at the time. And so this gaming company, the CEO ended up hiring a guy named Mickey Rossi. Awesome dude, taught me an awful lot of stuff. But Mickey Rossi used to be a creative director at AOL, America Online, way back in the day. And he had some other past accomplishments under his belt that made him more suitable to put on a sheet like this, to where you can say, oh, and he's worked for this company and this company. And for yourselves, being able to say, hey, yeah, in the past, I helped out with these people, even if it's not the biggest brand in the entire world, you can still phrase it in a way that kind of puffs you up and talks about what your accomplishments were in that previous space. So even if you worked at, a grocery store as a bag boy, then you did incredible customer interaction and you were client facing. And this sounds a little bit hokey, but think about how they do it in the real estate world as well, right? So you've got a house that's completely, falling apart. The beams are exposed. It needs a lot of work. And the real estate agent turns around for that listing and says, oh my goodness, this is a potential dream home for the right buyer. And that's all they say, right? So when you're talking about your past clients and your accomplishments, even if that job, you remember it as being the most stressful thing in the entire world and it didn't go well, still talk about it and talk about it from a place of what you were able to accomplish there. And that's really going to be reassuring to anyone that's thinking about hiring you or any studio that you're trying to get in with. Step number 5. So step number 5 and 6 are a little bit similar as well. These different brackets can be grouped up, but step number 5 is letting them know what is next. Okay. So this is all about being excited, what you can accomplish with this role or with this client. In the Blue Ocean example, they start showing the growth potential, right? This is the money page within these pitch decks. So you're asking people to give you investment money to be able to grow your business. You're asking for a studio to invest with you. This is the potential, that you can offer. So, not only do I understand the pipeline very well and I'm able to join up for that, but I'm willing to put in the work and, let's accomplish something absolutely great. I'm very excited for what we can make together for this new video game that you guys are going to be coming out with, or this new film. I'm sure that it's going to be just as good as, if not better, and set new benchmarks and new standards for, anything that's out there in the market now. Really, be the rah person at that moment, be the cheerleader. Step number 6 is going to be, lastly, the next steps. So previously we have let them know what's next. Now we have the next steps. What does this mean? So the difference between these two is we're talking about the high level. Here's what the next goal is, where we move on into into what the company is going to be able to do with you being hired. But in step 6, what the next micro steps look like for you. So this is one of my favorite taglines that I like to end an email with, is looking forward to the next steps and learning about how this role is a great fit for everyone. That is such an important line that I learned quite a few years ago. And it helps out a lot, because it doesn't just say, hey, I'm desperate to be able to work for this studio. It says, hey, look, I'm an individual artist. I'm a creative. I want to make sure that this is a good fit for not only myself, but for me to be able to come in with the team and to be able to work well within this team and this community. So I think it's a really positive next step line. If any of you guys are, following along, you've probably been reading every one of these slides that's on the screen too. I would say for this one, take a little photo of it on your phone to be able to get that last line that's down there at the bottom. For the Blue Ocean one, their examples of next steps is what they're going to be doing is raising money to drive more sales on a highly successful product. Launch our next product, API access, building an unbreakable lock-in. Okay. And why now? Let's get this done before anyone sees us coming. I love that. That's such an exciting statement, right? And you can find your own as well for, how it is you want to end the email, but it's all about almost assuming that you're already going to talk again, that this interview process, this onboarding process is going to lead to a next micro step that ends up in the transaction that you're looking for, which is either getting a job, selling some media to a company that you're going to produce, or, or helping that company get more work later on down the line. All right. So just to be able to very quickly get all those steps onto the same screen, this is that point where if you took a photo of this one or a screenshot, you'll look at it 3 weeks from now and you'd be like, wait a second, these all sound a little bit similar. Number one, state the problem. Number two, what is your value add? What are you bringing to the table? Now that you've said what the problem is, how is your skill set going to be able to help them solve for that problem? Number three, how did you use that skill set that you just talked about to be able to solve for the problem in the past? Number three, what did that solving for it in the past accomplish for that company? You were able to launch your game. What's the result of you guys launching the game? What are the accolades that you received? We had, 1 million sales within the first 3 months of this game that we launched. Our video short movie that we created ended up winning at this film festival and this film festival. All of these are, undeniable things and hard facts that help bolster what your accomplishments are up until this point. Step 6, the next step. So really there's 2, right? We're talking about the rah-rah moment with the company for saying, hey, I'm excited for what it is we're going to be able to create together. And I'm excited for being able to, meet with you guys in person and get to know the studio more to find out if this is going to be a great fit for everybody and see what we can really talk more about what we can accomplish together. It's a very different tonal shift, but these small things really add up a lot with the way that you're presenting yourself when writing any kind of cover letter or any type of initial introduction to a company in the creative space. All righty. So now we're going to switch things up just a little bit here, and we're going to talk about how things actually work and peel back the curtain within a design studio. So on the left-hand side, we've got the expectation that we all have for these design studios, right? We're using interior design as kind of an example, right? You imagine it to be this futuristic, high-tech space that is so nice and neatly organized, and they've really got their ducks in a row, and you've made it in there, and all your problems are going to be solved. You've got this nice space to be able to work in every day. Most of the time, the reality within these studios looks more like what you see on the right-hand side. They are a hodgepodge of all types of different things. They are a framework of just holding it together with duct tape and silly string. And things are a lot more disorganized behind the scenes than they would have you believe. But I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you're going into the video game space, have already read about the trend of games over the past couple of years of being launched full of bugs, not entirely completed, and they're trying to rush to get these things to launch because the investors want to see the return on their product as quickly and as soon as possible. So studios are not always these Shangri-La, my problem in my life is solved, even when you get on the inside of them. Here's an example from the real world. So studios are on a very tight budget. This is quite a while ago, but it's a legendary example of the studio Digital Domain. Not sure if any of you guys remember these guys or have heard of them before, but they produced a movie called The Life of Pi. And when The Life of Pi came out, they ended up winning the award for Best Motion Graphics or Best Visual Effects within a film that year at the Oscars, because they created this tiger within the film that was so hyper realistic for the time and took up so much of the screen that you couldn't even tell that it was a 3D tiger. It looked absolutely stunning within the movie. While this studio was accepting their Oscar for the best visual effects, they were also filing for bankruptcy. They were completely broke and they'd run out of money. So while they have accomplished, one of the greatest things that you can within this field, it's one of the best awards, and they're at the top of their game, they're completely failing financially. And how the heck does that even happen? Making art is really expensive. If you guys know anything about the history of the Walt Disney Company, they started off in New York City. It became too expensive to be able to hire artists in New York. And so this is why Walt Disney and his brother moved the entire company over to the West Coast, because the labor was cheaper. It's the same reason why Disney now outsources a lot of their in-betweening and their production pipeline to China, which is getting too expensive to be able to produce work within China. So now they're going over to tertiary markets like Vietnam or Cambodia or Singapore to be able to do a lot of their rendering. That's where a lot of the rendering farms are at. That's where a lot of the in-betweeners go. And the reason for this is art is always trying to lower the cost to be able to produce it. And then it's trying to raise the return that you can get on your investment for the people that you borrowed from to be able to create this really expensive stuff. Like in the case of Digital Domain, they were a studio that had one big project that they kept on having to do revisions on over and over again to be able to satisfy the studio's needs and what the studio wanted within the film, while all the time they were not able to secure that next contract to be able to get them and float them into the future. So they ran into a situation where they spent too much money working on Life of Pi, and then they weren't able to secure another contractor, be able to allocate another team to be able to keep the money coming in. And then once they finished the Life of Pi, they had to shut down. They had to file for bankruptcy. It's a really scary thing, and it's something that happens to major Hollywood studios at the top of their game. It can also happen to creatives as well. So it's very important that when you do get into one of these studios that you see as being, you know, the benchmark for your career, that you understand that they are running on a shoestring budget and they always have the potential to be able to collapse. There's plenty of examples within the gaming world as well, to where guys, were passionately involved within these products. The studio could no longer pay them. And then they worked to be able to get the game to launch, to hopefully be able to make their money back for another 3 months without getting paid. And that's an awful situation to be in that I never want to see any of you guys go into. So this is why we're kind of talking about this right here. The idea from a studio's perspective is that a new hire and a new project is a massive risk and a massive undertaking. It's an investment on a tight deadline. So going back to those past 6 steps, it's very important that you make them feel great about bringing you on and trusting you with this responsibility. Even if you're nervous and you're shaking in your boots, they're nervous too. It's they're scared to ask you to the dance, and they've got a lot riding on these hires as well, just like you do within your own personal life. The studio has a lot when it comes to bringing you on as well. All right, so the next one here is giving you a little bit more insight. We're going to change the chapter again to something a little bit more positive, right? That was like doom and gloom. This one is all about knowing the seasons. And there's this weird analogy that I'm about to make, but it makes sense. So within the financial world, they always talk about the 4 quarters throughout a year. So, oh man, Walt Disney Company's third quarter earnings weren't as high as they predicted they would be. These 4 different quarters are pretty important to be able to understand what the money cycles look like and the hiring process looks like within the gaming, within any creative market, and really any industry that's out there. So the chart that I have on the right-hand side says the video game sales are extremely seasonal. You can see within each one of these, get a basic idea of it, that during Christmas time, the end of the year, December, the holiday seasons, that's when the majority of video game sales take place. Makes sense, right? Now, when we're looking at the hiring cycles and the money cycles of these companies, it's important to understand when you're going to be able to get in. I understand that you need to get a job yesterday. You've been trying 3 months to be able to get onboarded, to get an email back from this company, and it can be an extremely frustrating process. So here we go. All businesses act like farmers. That's right. Like old MacDonald had a farm. During the wintertime, the money, the crops are all gone, right? This is when they have spent, they're making their money from their video game sales, their products are in the theaters, but all the money that they had planned for that year has been spent. So when you start to get into early December, most of the studio's budgets are completely cashed out. Sometimes, rare cases, they have a little bit of extra spending or some money that they need to spend off to be able to justify asking for that money again for the next year, and they'll finish up some loose end projects. This can be sort of a weird time to be able to come in with a lot of people out of work, to be able to pick up some freelance jobs and start to get your foot in the door with those studios. Next up, after winter comes spring. So during the springtime, we're looking at about from March to April. This is where studios are really going through and they're starting to plan their budget for the next year. They're looking at, okay, what can we accomplish? Where do we want to spend our money? What type of advertising budget are we going to have? What kind of marketing budget are we going to use? Are we going to be able to bring on new hires? What does our growth process look like? Are we going to, here's the jobs that we're going to bid on. Here's the people that we're potentially going to need to be able to take on those jobs. That's really kind of the way that they're looking for it. So within those first couple months throughout the year, they're planning and plotting for how they're going to spend their money. So during this late spring is when a lot of times companies will do their onboarding. This is around May. And this is a great, between January, right? Get those emails out there. They're going to make the decision in, April for who it is that they're going to hire. And then by May, just before summer gets started, that's when they're going to start ramping up production. And during the summertime, just like farmers, they go out there, they work the fields, they, start sowing the seeds, they're letting everything grow that they've put into production and planned for that fiscal financial year. So production time during the summer absolutely happens. That's a great time to be able to get in with a studio, but most of the time they've already made their monetary decisions back during the early spring of that year. Finally, during the fall, this is when the harvest happens, right? This is what farmers do. They go and they cut all the crops down. They get ready to sell it to the market. This is when all those products, all the creative that they were building over the summer gets launched to market and gets ready for the holiday season. So this is wrapping it all up with a bow and actually finishing and finalizing the production process. So this is a great time to get on with the studio. They are rushing to get their product out. They are always going to be behind because they made too many decisions and said, oh, that's not working. Let's change something. And they need all the help they can get to be able to get that product out there. So from September through, I would say, again, about mid-November is a great time for you to also be able to apply to studios, tap their shoulders within these emails and say, hey, look, I noticed that your video game has been delayed again, right? I'm a 3D artist. I'm a texture artist. I can come in and I can help you guys crunch textures or expand textures for this new gaming system that you're porting over to that's going to get released this winter, and you decided that you want to be able to have your game that was developed for the previous gaming platform on the new gaming platform. And I understand, because I've worked in this pipeline before, what this looks like to be able to transfer over those textures and upscale them to the next generation gaming systems. I did this for this company, and we were able to get it launched by Christmas with this amount of sales. I can't wait for the next steps. And now you just went through all 6 of those steps that we've been talking about. Kind of cool, huh? All righty. So there we go. I think we've been doing a good job today of connecting the dots along the way, but we're going to look at a slide for what that actually means and how that can work. So here we go. We have President Camacho over here on the left-hand side. It's from this movie called Idiocracy. And one of his quotes in there is, it's what plants need. So this is what studios need from you. And here's the gist of it within this small paragraph is that studios are overworked. They are exhausted and they are out of time, just like you. See, we're connecting the dots. They're often on a tight they are often a tight-knit group of friends because they're together all the time. You are entering into a battle-tested squadron that has been through some shit together. And so understanding that this is your audience, this is who you're applying to, this is where you're going into, I hope these steps will help you speak their language, and especially keeping in mind that these guys have been delayed on projects, they've had to work weekends together, they have been in very stressful situations with one another within this fast-paced creative world, crazy creative world environment. And they are a tight unit. So you're definitely joining a very tight-knit club, and coming at these job applications and building these relationships with the studio from day one of understanding that, these guys they're a crew, and that's what you're coming into. So there can be a lot of, oh, who's this new guy that's on the team? Oh, this new person, he's not going to be able to last very long, especially if they've seen a couple creative hire and fire cycles in the past. And you want to take note of that when you go into the studio to feel, hey, is this a team of people that I want to be best friends with, that I can see myself actually really getting along with? And if you get a weird feeling from going through the job interview, even if, you really, really need the job, chances are that it's probably not going to be the best fit for you long-term, especially when stuff gets really real. I've worked in studios before in the past where I came in the first day, no one turned around, no one said hey to me, no one tried to get to know who I am. And it was a weird, awkward feeling, especially for a job that I was really excited about and wanted. And it turned out not to be the best studio in the entire world. But, you, as an individual, just understand that you're bringing a lot of value and you're really helping these studios to be able to save their own butts. They're taking a big chance on you, but you're also taking a big chance on these studios as well. So no matter how much you need the job, just always remember to be able to respect your own agency and make sure that it's a place that you feel is going to be a good fit for yourself. All right, that's really important. Next one, the process. So just to be able to wrap it all back up here before we get into the question asking segment, the process. First, you're going to state the problem and the opportunity, right? You're going to talk about what your benefit and your value add is. How are you helping them solve that problem or that opportunity? Number 3, how you solved for this problem in the past. What did you do? How did you fix it? Number 4, what are your past clients and accomplishments? How did you, fixing that problem in the past, help solve for the problem, and what was the result? Cover letters can be phrased this way. You can create your own pitch decks as well. It's a really, really good practice, and there's a lot of brilliant examples of them out on the internet. And I think if you guys do end up researching pitch decks and maybe downloading some examples of them, you'll find that they all move in this exact same process. So this process is not only speaking to companies that are trying to get more work, but it's pretty universal for any type of onboarding. And it's a great skill to be able to have. Steps number 5 and 6 is the time frame. You want to talk about, hey, let's try and get me onboarded and get me in the door. Let's meet up in person. Let's have a tour of the studio and your facilities within the next week. You always want it to be sooner rather than later, because you'd hate for things to just get caught up in the air and never actually materialize. I've had lots of jobs in the past that they become a little bit wishy-washy about actually moving forward with the hiring process. And your best thing is, from a sales perspective, once the customer actually holds it in their hand, they're 10 times more likely to actually buy it. So get the product in their hand, get your butt in their studio so that they can actually see how enthusiastic you are and how much of an asset you're going to be for their pipeline. All right. So here's the closing slide for this one today before we open it up into the questions. You guys, please feel free to follow me and reach out on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of my artwork stuff at. Is Skato, that's SKATOORG at Instagram, or on Facebook. Really, that particular word, Skato.org, is my website, skato.org. And anywhere, YouTube, ArtStation, Behance. There's a lot of media presence that I have over the years on online, and it's all scatto.org. So I'm really easy to be able to find. If you have any questions, if you want me to review a cover letter that you're writing, if you want some kind of tips on, now you just got into the studio, or how to be able to get the raise or move to the next level within that studio, I'm always here. And I think that's a cool part about this creative community and Art Heroes is we want to see you all succeed and want to see you be able to do the best that you can and get to those goals that you've been working so hard to be able to make it to. So good job that you signed up. And I also want to let you guys know that we're all continuing to study here in this industry. We're always trying to get better. I still don't know everything myself. So I'm happy that you guys were willing to listen to me today. Sometimes it can be difficult to be able to figure it out by yourself, but you don't have to. Like I said, I'm a career mentor here at Art Heroes, and you're always welcome to come join our programs if you need some help, or just reach out to me on Instagram or any of those other social media touch points. The next module that we have running is going to be the Character Artist Accelerator, which starts on September 20th. I'm going to be coming in and sort of art directing you guys if you sign up for this one, and giving you some tips and feedback for how you can push your character forward, how you can start displaying that character, how you can take those screenshots, those work in progress photos, and then apply those to your final portfolio piece that really tells the story for how you got that character over the line and solves for, I think it was step number 4 within that process. I'm not too sure. But thank you so much for hearing me out today. I'm going to use the last bit of this time to be able to answer any questions that you guys might have. And again, you totally got this. All right.
Any questions?
Hey, Emma Smith, how are you doing? Oh my goodness.
I'm doing Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Can you hear me? Okay, just making sure if you can hear me. Okay. Did you want me to set up the questions, or are you good with like screen sharing? How do you?
Yeah, you can set up the questions. So it is 1:48. We've got about 12 minutes. We can go a little bit over today since we started late. But I haven't been able to see any of the chat this entire time. I've been looking at the presentation for what's getting shared out. So yeah, now you guys can actually see me in full screen. And yeah, this is the chance, man. If you've got any personal situations that you've had, or anything that you've been working through within your own creative space, or you got a weird response and the studio left you up in the air and you want to know how to be able to keep the conversation going, just ask me. This is the great time.
Yep. Yeah, and we got also some questions in the comment section of the actual event. So if you want, I can pull those up and read those back to you if you
Yeah, let's do it, Anna.
Okay, so currently refreshing to make sure I've got all the more recent ones, but the first question is, how do you pitch yourself for your first job in the industry, like if you don't really have a track record or real work experience that you can use to sell yourself?
Yeah, that is number one, right? So I was looking at the stats for what kind of folks we have in this chat today. And there's a lot of you who are trying to break into the industry. And I'm sorry if the way that I've described this thing kind of oscillated between 3 different levels, right? So we've got companies that are trying to get more work. We've got studios that are trying to get, some kind of new project launched. And then we've got the individuals, yourself, who's just trying to get into the industry as well. So if there's not a lot of former client experience that you have or studio experience, you need to understand that you have been working in the 3D pipeline. You're working in the steps and the processes that every major studio is going through and using. So attach yourself and drop some names within that cover letter and say, hey, look, I've been developing 3D characters for, the past 2 years. And those 3D characters that I've created are using the exact same pipeline as so-and-so as Rockstar Games, right? So I'm working with the same pipeline that Rockstar Games is using, where we go from ZBrush to Substance Painter to rigging it wherever the heck you're rigging it at, and then getting it out the door. you're using that exact same professional pipeline. That's what you're training on right now. And just drop another company's name and say that you're doing it the exact same way that they're doing it as well. So did you work for them? No, but you're doing things the same way that they do.
Next question is from Mustafa. And he asks, when applying to a company that you previously weren't picked up by, what's a good way to change up your cover letter from the last time while still keeping the same voice of your last pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were with a company and you tried to apply to them previously and they never got back to you, or you're dropping through one of those like online portals, man, I hate those online portals where we've all been there, right? Where you open it up and it's like, okay, please fill in your work history, your past 4 jobs, and it doesn't auto populate from your LinkedIn. And then you spend like, God, an hour and a half trying to fill out this job interview thing, and they never even get back to you. I hate that. That is one of the worst, like, blind knocks on a door that you can ever have. My recommendation would be for you, this might be bad advice, but don't fill those out. Very rarely in my own career, after filling out hundreds of those, does anyone ever actually get back to you. It is a much better thing to reach out to someone directly at that company on LinkedIn, on their Instagram, on their Facebook group for their company, and start developing those personal connections, right? So at that point, instead of just blindly emailing a company and saying, hey, look, I tried to apply for this 3D role, or just blindly submitting a cover letter through their website, tap the creative director, tap one of the lead artists on LinkedIn, say, hey, look, I'm really interested in getting in with you guys. If you wouldn't mind, just keep me up to date for when you feel like another hiring round is happening. Then there's no pressure on their part. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is let you know, hey, we've got a role that's coming up here. And then hopefully if they let you know that, you go in, you go through the website process because there's a job that they're actually hiring for. Sometimes they'll just let those bins fill with different applications. And then when you do that, you've actually got a much better chance because someone's looking out for your resume to be able to arrive as well. I hope that helps.
The bins, and it just has endless applications. And there's now like AI that searches for certain keywords for these things, and you're really just like another number unless you actually know somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. But now we can AI the AI, and we can chat GPT our resumes and start putting in all those buzzwords so that the two AIs are chatting and hitting it off before we talk to a person. That's automated.
Yes. All right. So the next one we have is from Christine. Is how do you pitch yourself in a way that doesn't become generic or boring, as well as not crossing the line of seeming unprofessional? They find themselves struggling with like making a good impression yet not coming across as not taking it so seriously.
Yeah, well, I would say there is a nonchalance that you can kind of have with these types of jobs, right? You understand that it's a lot like dating, that you are going to end up talking to a bunch of different companies. You're going to end up courting a bunch of different companies. Those companies are courting lots of other artists, and you just got to be, lighthearted about the situation. Even when you're struggling and you're like, man, I really need a job. Just understand that it's nothing personal. So I saw a portfolio one time to be able to get a job at Blizzard. Somebody was wanting to be a UI UX designer for Overwatch. That game. Yeah, that game's doing great now, right? So this is why the story's cool. So they took their portfolio, they took their entire domain, their website that they paid for, and they recreated painstakingly themselves the entire like Overwatch UI UX space. So when you clicked on About Me, then it would do the and then the character would like pop up and everything, and then tell you about them. And it was the most overblown, like fan gush website I've ever seen in my entire life. Did they get hired by Blizzard? Yeah, they got hired by Blizzard. But in my opinion, it was complete overkill. If they didn't get that job with Blizzard, what were they going to do? Like any other company would be like, we don't like you. You're like a giant Blizzard fanboy. Go play some Overwatch. Like they pigeonholed themselves into being too specific. So what are fun ways to be able to stand out? Your work is going to do the talking for you. So have a great portfolio. Have a portfolio that tells the story. It's not just one final render image, but it tells the story of who this character is, how you went through this process. What was the result of you creating that character? Was this character used for anything? And if it wasn't used for anything and it's just a piece for your portfolio, then by God, say this character would be used for this type of video game, and this video game would be about this. This would be the main character. This would be a minion. This would be the bad guy within this video game. And tell the story so that these people can start to connect the narrative for what it is that they do with the work that you're producing. And that makes a huge difference.
So now we have our next question from Taya, and it's, what are some examples of problem-solving situations or accomplishments that I can talk about when writing a cover letter as an entry-level candidate with no prior experience in the industry?
Okay, so just to repeat that back, it's writing a cover letter with no previous industry experience, right? Sort of the gist of it.
Specifically examples of problem-solving situations and accomplishments. That was the more specific.
I got you. Okay, so problem-solving examples and accomplishments. Shoot. I can remember one time I was working on a production studios. You know, whenever you watch a movie, like they have the title sequence that comes up, or produced by, and then sometimes you'll get like 5 or 6 of those at the beginning of a film. I was making one of those, and God, I spent 3 months trying to do a simulation within RealFlow of waves crashing onto a beach shore for this one particular shot. And man, I every day was working on this thing, trying to get it looking absolutely perfect, getting the foam, getting all the caustics and everything working within the render. And then I went to export it, and I could not get the textures to attach themselves within Maya from my RealFlow export. I couldn't believe it. After like 3 months of working, then I got stopped like really at the end of the door. The contract was coming to an end. I had to like send it off. And so what I ended up doing was changing the camera angle for that particular shot. There was a lot of other things that were happening within this video, and that was one shot that I got really stuck on and spent the majority of time for those 3 months working on. By moving my camera to where I'm just not seeing the shoreline, and did a low angle shot and hid the shoreline, the vehicle that was coming up entered in the frame. The connection was there that it was coming off the water. I could make the water drop off of it from the ocean. But that's sort of the idea. So right now you're feeling like you don't have any previous industry experience. You haven't worked for a company before, but you are doing the exact same things that these companies are doing. You are learning the pipeline. You're understanding what the production process looks like. You're using the exact same tools. So when it comes to accomplishments that you've put out there, you can say, hey, you know, I have produced this many like finalized characters that are game ready, that are working with the AAA production pipeline. And you're just changing the phrasing. You're thinking again, you know, I'm not quite there. I haven't worked for a company yet. I haven't been in the industry. I don't have that experience. You do have the experience because you've sat there, you've learned the program, you're going through the exact same process. You're doing by yourself the same job that these people inside the studios have got 6 other people to be able to help them out with. And this is an extremely valuable thing that you're doing, that you just need to be able to recognize and come from a place of, you know, my skill set matters. My skill set is my experience. And when you can talk from that kind of point, I think that it helps you become a lot more professional and really try to get the ear of some of these studios as well. The biggest part is also developing the relationships, especially studios taking a chance on the first timer, is being able to understand that, you know, maybe you're not getting in there for their big cycle of game work or the new video game that they're going to go into production on, but instead you're getting in there for the work that comes at the end of the year, So during the fall time is a great time if you've never worked with the studio before. They're going to need some kind of cleanup. They're going to need some kind of last minute adjustments before they get that product actually launched. And that's when they're more willing to take on any work that they can get for anyone that can show up right away to be able to get this thing out the door. And then hopefully they have a little bit of budget that they can start to cash out up until the end of the fiscal year to be able to pay you to be able to get in there and then prove yourself. So I hope that helps.
Already at time. So that we do have a couple more questions in there, but
yeah,
I'm sure if anybody has any like extra questions, like maybe reach out and we can answer. And possibly through the private messaging if you feel.
Yeah, I'm seeing one of them in there. They're like, "Oh, I hate it when companies don't get back to me after you like their entire online thing. They're ghosting you, man. That's exactly what's happening. It's just like a girl that you really like, and then you took her out 3 times, and then she just vanishes. Like, what the heck is even going on?"
Yeah, there's so many of those moments, and there's a lot of questions of like the ghosting and how to overcome that first hurdle when you're first getting into the industry. It's just that first hurdle to showcase that you're able to do the work, that you've done, that you're able to do what they're asking of you. And but I mean, these are all such amazing tips, and I'm sure everybody's been saying how great like the information has been. So thank you so much for the presentation today and for showing up for us and coming in on Saturday to have this live with us.
Yeah, thanks for joining me on your Saturday as well, you guys. I mean, this is a lot of broad stuff that we really kind of covered today. And if you feel like it, I also am able to do one-on-one sessions with you guys as well. If you have any specific questions or any situation that you've run into, we can look at a company that you're really targeting and that you really want to work for. You feel like you'd be a good fit, and I can help you within like a 30-minute session write out a cover letter, look at some strategies to be able to really make that stuff appealing, and how to help you perhaps stand out a little bit more within the hiring process. Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much, and thank you everybody for showing up. And we will make sure the live is uploaded. It should be uploaded sometime soon. And if you are coming to Lauren's live in about an hour, we'll also see you in a little bit. But again, thank you.
Yeah.
And
wait, before you start recording, I know I'm supposed to ask time that there's a questionnaire that gets sent out. And if you would, please answer that questionnaire and give me any kind of feedback that you can for how the session went. We're always trying to do better here at Art Heroes, and that's really, really appreciated. So it doesn't take very long, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep on learning.
Yes, that questionnaire is actually also, it is going to be in the live actual event page that I linked above. So all of that is there. So yes, absolutely, please.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for listening today, guys, and have a great rest of your weekend.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.